All right, morning and welcome to 5 Minutes or More with Pastor on this Tuesday, June 9th. Um, it is a cool and rainy day. You can hear the kids inside. They are here. Um, Glasses on, a little bit of a sniffly nose, and that is because yesterday Gabe and I went for a walk through Graham Oaks in Wilsonville. And we walked through for about an hour. We had a good time. We actually went off trail and down the bean and up at the other side, and we were everywhere in there and having a good time. And we were actually heading back to the car. And as we were heading back to the car, this huge gust of wind came through, and you could see it. It just stirred up all of the pollen there from that grass, the tall grass there in Graham Oaks, and just stirred it all up. And man, when we came home, both of us, our eyes were a mess, and we were coughing and sneezing and all of those things. So we had a good time, but then at the very end, it caught us. Good morning, Katie. Good morning, Anita. Good morning, Melissa. Thanks for joining us this morning. We are in Psalm 44, and I hope you have a good morning this morning. Psalm 44, I just want to read this one verse from Psalm 44 and verse 3. It says this, For they got not the land in possession by their own sword, neither did their own arms save them, but thy right hand and thine arm and the light of thy countenance, because thou hadst a favor unto them. I was reading a story about a lady who in 1994 was visiting the Bay Area of California and decided that she was going to go over to Yosemite National Park there, and she wanted to summit El Capitan. If you're not familiar with El Capitan, you can Google it later and see it's a beautiful summit there with a sheer face, and but you can hike up kind of around the backside of which most people do. And she wanted to do that, and she was excited about doing that while she was there. And as she was into her hike, a huge storm started to brew, and she got really nervous about being stuck in the woods when this giant storm was coming through. And she got a little disoriented and got off trail and wasn't quite sure where she was. And so she actually used her phone to call 911 to call somebody to come and rescue her. And they actually ended up using um, a helicopter to rescue her because she was so close to the summit. As a matter of fact, when they began to take off from the helicopter, she realized that she was barely off trail, and she was less than a quarter mile from the summit of El Capitan. And when she realized that, you know what she did? She didn't thank her rescuers. She asked, put me back down, put me back down. Land this. She demanded that they landed that helicopter, put her back down so that she could finish the hike. And they said, "No, ma'am, we can't do that. That's not possible." And she started demanding that they would do that for her. And they said, "Ma'am, we can't." And finally, she said, "If you don't put me down, I'm going to charge all of you with kidnapping." I mean, the lady was crazy. Sometimes when we uh, when we especially after a victorious season of our life, sometimes we forget along the way how close we came to failing and how many times God has rescued us and been there for us. And David here is writing in Psalm 44 as a reminder that, hey, the children of Israel did not conquer the land by their own strength or by their own sword or by their own arm or by their own abilities. It says, but by thy right hand and thine arm and the light of thy countenance, because thou hast had favor on them. David was reminding Israel, hey, this is really what this is really about is about the gracious hand of God. As a matter of fact, let me read Joshua 24 and verse 17. They've now taken the land. In verse 17, it says this. It says of Joshua 24, it says, "For the Lord our God, he it is that brought us up and our fathers out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage, and which did those great signs in our sight, and preserved us in all the way wherein we went, and among all the people through whom we passed. Over and over and over again, God did a miraculous work with those people and saved them time and time again so that they could prevail. And those people saw God's grace filled hand on their lives time and time again. He would bring them protection and victory. And I want to remind you that as well along the way. You may have really victorious moments in your Christian life. You may have moments where you feel defeated. We talked earlier this week about the Lord pulling us out of the miry clay. Never forget, even when you feel like failure is imminent and things are not well, that God is right there to pull you up. And then when you have those victorious moments, myself included, let's be careful not to pat ourselves on the back and say, "Great, I did a great job. I was awesome," and notice how great I did. But to remember, as the psalmist says in verse 3, "For they got not the land in possession by their own sword, neither by their own arm. Neither did their own arm save them, but by thy right hand and thine arm and the light of thy countenance, because thou hast had a favor unto them." Hey, let's go throughout our days remembering that the strength that we have and the ability we have comes from the strength of our God. It comes from his right hand, it comes from his strong arm, and it comes from his favor in our lives. Praise the Lord for the favor of God in our lives today. And I hope you live in that this morning. Hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you guys later.